Hey guys, so we're expecting a ban list soon, so this month's meta-analysis may be pretty irrelevant soon enough, but I still of course will be doing this on a monthly basis regardless, where I look at what the top 25 ranked players on Dueling book are playing and their win percentages, so let's get started. So this month, this was the breakdown of matches contributed by the top 25 ranked players, where they roughly contributed 20 replays each, although I had to exclude some of them because the matches stopped before any card was played. Anyways, you see that almost half of the matches contributed involve Swordsoul, really is a clear-cut tier 1 deck and just everywhere. Next up is Tri-Brigade Lyrilusc, also known as Birdup, still taking second place as last month. Then we have Mathmech, and there's a few players on DB who are consistently high rated with this deck, so they really are putting this deck on notice. Then we have Prank-Kids, which might even be a bit surprising nowadays since they seem to have fallen off. Up next was Dogmatika Invoked, which now all seem to run DPE, and you can check out my most recent analytical video on win percentages based on when DPE was summoned. We then have ABC, obviously always contributed by Pier 555, and Drytron has fallen off this month, same for Sky Striker as well. And then we actually have Virtual World Swordsoul, so if you count that with Swordsoul as well, then the representation really becomes half of all matches contributed. We have a bit of Phantom Knight as well, a deck that when DPE was released I really thought was going to be a clear tier 1 deck, but really hasn't shown to be that way. We had a few matches contributed from other decks such as Fluandereeze, Eldritch, and Dragon Link. Compare that to last month's breakdown, it was pretty similar with the top decks, and just not as much variety among the top 25 players as we've seen a few months ago, now that the clear choices are Swordsoul and Birdup. Drytron was more popular at this point, but like I said, it did fall off for the month, and maybe Arch Nemesis Protoss is just too much for them. For January, our top 25 players won 73% of the matches, so a bit higher than last month, and in terms of playstyle, over half of the matches by our top players involve them running mid-range decks like Swordsoul, followed by combo decks like Birdup or Prank-Kids. Not a lot of control decks like Sky Striker being played by our top players, and the beatdown strategy came solely from Mathmech. Compare that to last month, there were still more combo decks among the top players at just over half, with decks like Birdup and of course Drytron and Phantom Knight having more representation at that point. So let's cover the top 5 decks in more detail as usual. Overall, the top players won 3/4 of their matches with this deck, and what's impressive is that regardless of the die roll result, they won at a similar amount. I think especially for the 10U variant, it is really good at going second still, and going first I'll typically have Baron, Fleur, and Grandmaster with the Blackout set, and gets even better if they are able to resolve Protoss' effect. I've seen some lists put up Adamantipator Dragot as well for the extra spell Trap Negate. Overall, among all players on Dueling book, this deck was definitely the most played deck out there, and they won 58% of their matches, so a pretty big difference compared to the top ranked players, but pretty solid. Next we have Birdup, where this deck also won about 3/4 of the matches among the top ranked players. No longer do we really see the pure Tri-Brigade lists that were more grindy, but rather a heavy combo oriented version with the Lyrilusc package, where they'll set up something like Utopic Draco Future for the Monster Negate, Apex Avian for the Omni Negate, and Lyrilusc, Ensemble Robin, and Ancient Warrior Oath for some bounces. Now considering that they are a combo deck, going first they did have an impressive 83% win percentage when they won the die roll, compared to 68% if they lost the die roll. Still not bad being able to win 2/3 of your matches when you lost a die roll for this deck. Overall, among all players, this was the second most played deck after Swordsoul, with a pretty solid 56 win percentage among all players. Next up we have Mathmech, with again another impressive win percentage where they won 3/4 of their matches. I know Enzo Central is one of the Mathmech players and was recently asking me when I would do this meta-analysis, so here you go buddy. When they won the die roll, they won 80% of their matches, but with an impressive 71% even when they lost the die roll. I do find that this win percentage by die roll differs quite a lot each time Mathmech make it on here, usually because of the small sample size, so I can never really know how dependent they are on the die roll result. Now overall among all players, this deck is never really that popular, coming in at 42nd and winning about 51% of the matches among all players. Not a lot of matches to go with for this one, but we have Prank-Kids that won 2/3 of their matches among the top ranked players. Definitely fell off its tier 1 status a while back with the Mew 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 limit. By die roll, the results don't make too much sense considering that they had a higher win percentage this time around when they lost the die roll. Obviously bound to happen when you have a small sample size. Of course, this is another combo deck that would ideally want to go first, so should theoretically do better if it wins the die roll. At the same time, the deck can play a lot of hand traps, so having to go second isn't too terrible either. Among all players on Dueling book, this was the 17th most played deck, so not bad, and winning about 52% of their match. Lastly, we have Dogmatika Invoked DPE, which I thought would be higher up than this. They won 77% of the matches this time around, and DPE is a really nice boost for them, but they can certainly put up a formidable turn 1 board without it. And you can check out my DPE analytical video for some interesting numbers regarding the deck. Now by die roll, another weird one with a higher win percentage when our top players lost the die roll. Again, small sample size, but traditionally with this deck, it does pretty well regardless of the die roll result. Now overall among all players, this was a really popular deck, coming in at 5th most played in the last 7 days, with a pretty solid 58% win percentage as well. Alright guys, that concludes yet another monthly meta analysis, so if you want to see this type of content on a regular basis, make sure to subscribe. I'm excited to do next month's meta analysis as it should be post ban list, so let's see how the representation changes. Take care guys.